Welcome to Kevin and Tanisha's Mix It Up.
Where we're going to discuss everything from our family and friends. Oops.
You need to...
What?
Don't sound like you're in the auditorium.
I just tried to do that.
Okay.
Check.
All right. Welcome to Kevin and Tanisha's Mix It Up.
Where we're going to discuss everything from our similarities and differences,
Family and friends,
son and daughter,
home and work,
and how it all impacts our marriage, parenting, relationships, faith, and beyond.
Let's mix it up.
All right, cool. Welcome back to In the Mix. All right, cool. Welcome back to Mix It Up. It's Kevin
And Tanisha.
and we are here today to talk to each other and the world about sacrifices and compromise.
Yep.
So, you feel like you sacrifice and compromise in a relationship?
Before we got married, I would say
You already trying to get deep and we haven't even started. You
But
thinking
you
about the
asked me,
answers.
like, before we got married, I think I did a lot of sacrifices. I made a lot of sacrifices.
No, I made a lot of sacrifices, but we'll get into that
Okay.
later. We're gonna get things kicked off with a game. It's basically like this or that, but it's sacrifice or compromise. So I have a list of 5 things that Tanisha either has to.
Stop cheating.
I ain't looking at your list. That she has to decide. Now, why are you looking at my list?
I can't even see.
She has to decide whether she will sacrifice that completely for the benefit of our relationship. If it really came down to it and it was like, yo, this relationship is not moving forward unless you do this or don't do this. So you have to decide, are you going to be willing to completely sacrifice this thing, or do we need to come to a compromise so you can keep it because it's that important to you? So I got my list for you. You got your list for me. Let's hear it. What you want to go first?
You go first.
You want me to come out with the heavy hitter first, or you want me to save the heavy hitter for the last?
I'm prepared for whatever.
Why you keep looking at my list?
I can't even see. I don't have my glasses on.
All right. So the first thing, would you either sacrifice, completely give it up, or would we need to come to a compromise for you to stop using Instagram?
Sacrifice. Because I don't even know how to really use it.
You're always on it though.
Yeah, for like hairstyles and recipes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I can go to Pinterest.
Okay.
I mean, it's not.
You have carpal tunnel because of Instagram.
I have carpal tunnel because of YouTube.
YouTube?
Yes.
YouTube, you're just watching. You ain't scrolling on YouTube like you be scrolling on Instagram.
Okay. I would sacrifice that. It's not that important for me.
Okay.
Okay, so mine would be your daily trips to Uppercut.
I don't take daily trips to Uppercut.
Okay.
So,
all my coins is gone out my...
well, that was when Uppercut was $1.25, and now it's like $1.37. So
Yeah,
that makes it more difficult. Would I sacrifice going to Uppercut physically every day for the benefit of our relationship, or would we need to compromise that? I mean, I can sacrifice that as long as I can buy beans and make coffee at home.
You do buy beans and make coffee.
That's what I'm saying. But on a consistent basis forever, like I've learned over these past few weeks, not being able to go into a store and go on my way to work and all that I can make coffee at home.
Okay.
As if we buy the exact cups.
Oh my God.
That they use at Uppercut with the sleeve. Sometimes I just feel like I don't want to wash this coffee mug out.
You don't.
Yeah, but still, I be wanting sometimes for other people to think he stopped and got a coffee this morning.
Oh, okay.
No,
Now
I
I'm
don't really care about that. All right. I guess we'll stay in the same vein there. Coffee, period.
Oh Lord. Oh God. Um. Oh, how would I function?
I don't know. Coffee. Would you? I mean, you don't have to
We would have
sacrifice
to
it.
compromise on that because I can't not drink coffee.
Yeah, our bank account is a lot better now that we've been making coffee every day at home.
I don't.
So
I take my coffee in the morning from home.
yeah, 2 mornings out of the week when I make it. I guess I need to do
I
better,
guess you
huh?
need to be better. That should be a part of your sacrifice.
All right.
Okay. Mine is eating at roosters.
No,
You know, since I'm a
you don't have to
vegetarian,
keep going.
I can make a veggie burger at home. We don't really need to go to roosters.
So you just made this about you. I won't compromise that. You don't have to come with me, but I'm going to Roosters.
It's not even that good.
It is. You just don't eat the things that are that good.
Okay.
I can go there 5 days a week, get something different every day, and have a great
So,
lunch or dinner.
what is it? Compromise or sacrifice?
Compromise, for sure. I'm not giving up Roosters for the benefit of our marriage. Negative.
Okay.
So, I guess we think alike. Here's the next one for you. Vegetarianism.
I would be sick.
Yeah, you would get used to it though.
No, we would have to compromise. My body would not. No.
You're not going back to being a meat eater.
No, I don't think so.
Uh,
I mean, if times got really hard.
Times is really hard. It's hard out here.
Like if produce was super high, but no. I mean, then I could just eat off. I can just go to the Korean store and Asian store, so I would be fine. So I would say we would just have to compromise.
Compromise on vegetarianism. So you sacrificed Instagram.
Yep.
You compromise on coffee.
Yes.
And compromise on vegetarianism. All right.
All right. Wearing Adidas sweatpants.
I don't have any Adidas sweatpants, so that's an easy sacrifice. I have some track pants.
Track pants.
I think I can sacrifice that.
Okay, good.
I can learn how to like other brands, or I only got one pair for
yeah,
real.
So just learn how to just throw those away.
I ain't throwing them away. They're brand new. But yeah, I can easily sacrifice that. Especially if I get some nice expensive jeans, something else that's easy and comfortable to wear every day.
So sacrifice.
Sacrifice those, yep.
Cool.
All right. And the fourth one I got is, so this one should be an easy sacrifice, but
you can't speak for me.
I'm interested. Saints football.
Mm.
Because you're only not even a full year in.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Why are you throwing me out like that?
I'm not. I'm just saying it should be an easy sacrifice. For the benefit of our marriage, you will
compromise.
You have to watch Saints football?
Absolutely. I mean, we're about to have a fire offense. I just can't not imagine not watching them.
Okay. So that's more important. Well, not more.
Not more. I know we're not making it about important.
You need to compromise. All right. All right, what's next?
Not watching. That's funny. We're pretty much on the same wave. Not watching any Ohio State football games.
Oh, for sure. I could sacrifice that for the benefit of our marriage.
Really?
Heck no. We're going to get divorced before I stop watching the Buckeye football.
Well, okay.
Buckeye football was around before you. It's going to be around after you.
Can you really say that, though?
I can.
Doing the current circumstances that our world is in.
Listen, that out of all of the things that people are posting on Instagram to like relive sports seasons right now, I don't really pay attention to most of it except for some LeBron highlights and Buckeye football highlights. So it's getting me through, and I look forward. That's something I look forward to every week. So
I just have to say, you
compromise.
only what?
I compromise that.
You would
like
compromise that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm definitely not sacrificing that. I'm not sacrificing Roosters, and I'm not sacrificing Ohio State football. All right, last one for you. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The answer should be easy again, but knowing you, you don't love me enough. Cheese.
But Ava and I love cheese.
I ain't talking about Ava. Ava don't have to stop eating cheese.
I mean, I might as well be. I would.
Might as well be a vegan.
Yeah, I would.
Would you sacrifice it, or do we need to compromise?
I would sacrifice it.
You are lying. You're not. You're gonna say you would tell me that you're not eating cheese, and you would be sneaking downstairs in a secret refrigerator
to my mom's house.
Yes. Come on.
Yeah, we would have to compromise because I couldn't. Yeah, not eating cheese. No.
So we both have all compromises and one sacrifice. You would sacrifice Instagram and sacrifice what? Which other one? None,
just Instagram.
And I would only sacrifice in-person trips to Upper Cup to get a coffee every day.
And OSU.
No, I compromised OSU. I'm not sacrificing.
And you would sacrifice your one pair of Adidas pants.
Oh yeah, so I
track pants.
This is reflective of our relationship. I sacrifice more than you do for this marriage. That's why I wanted to play this game, because it shows. It really shows who gives up the most to make this thing work.
I don't think so.
But that's not what this is all about. But it is interesting that we think alike, kind of, and we're almost on the same wavelength there, completely with our sacrifice and compromise listings. But what this is really about is just talking about what does it take to manage a relationship, any kind of relationship, really, from a best friend to a life partner. What does it take what kind of sacrifice does it take? What kind of compromise does it take? And I think this was very reflective of our relationship, that shows that we have our own things that we really like, but we often figure out ways to come to compromises on those things. I guess my question is, and I think if I was on the other side of this listening and just hadn't thought about it a lot, like what's the difference? And even when I was thinking about, this episode, trying to figure out what is the difference between a sacrifice and a compromise, because in the end of the day, I'm really either one. I'm like kind of feel like I'm giving up something. So what do you consider a sacrifice to be?
So I would say that a sacrifice is, that this is something that is very important to you, but you're willing to look past it to be with someone or to be in a situation. So
then what's a compromise?
A compromise, in my opinion, would be something where you are able to negotiate and have a dialogue about and come to an agreement.
All right. So I got two homies, Miriam and Webster. And Miriam says that a sacrifice is an act of offering to a deity something precious, We're not talking about that kind of sacrifice. We're not talking about killing someone and offering them up.
No.
Though sometimes I guess it kind of does feel like that, huh? When you have to sacrifice something, it's like killing a part of yourself
Absolutely.
and giving that to the other person.
Unwillingly.
Huh? Or willingly.
Sometimes, yeah, I guess so.
Like that's interesting. We just found really the root of what we're talking about here.
Wow.
I didn't even think about this. I have suppressed and murdered my want and need to play NBA 2K for this marriage. I'm offering that to you. Huh. Look at God.
Look at him.
So the second one is something offered in a sacrifice. The third one is, which is more of what we're talking about, destruction or surrender of something for the sake of something else.
Mm-hmm.
So surrendering something for the sake of another person, for the sake of a relationship, for the sake of a friendship, etc. So, and then Webster, he says that, is Webster a he? Or
You
is she?
just gave it a gender.
I'm sure they're both he's. Come on. When was this created? A long time ago.
Proceed.
So a compromise is a settlement of differences by arbitration or by consistent I didn't go to private school. Settlement of differences by arbitration or by consent reached by mutual concessions. I don't even I need the Urban Dictionary for this one. That's too many C words, blood. B, something intermediate.
There goes that communication degree popping in.
Boy, these compromise got a risky definition for me to read aloud. Something intermediate between or blending qualities of two different things. That's kind of like our podcast.
Yeah.
And the next one, a concession to something derogatory or prejudicial. Bro, all of these words is difficult. I guess they shouldn't be. I need to read more. So I like your definition. I don't understand these definitions of compromise. I like your definition of compromise. Coming to an agreement. That sounds good. Two people coming to an agreement about something.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel, I guess, which one of these over your experiences in life do you feel is more prevalent in friendships, family, relationships?
So I would say, because, I spent majority of my career in clinical therapy, and just from personal family experience, I would say a lot of people feel like they are sacrificing. Mm-hmm. And it's something that in the end they become very regretful about. I mean, I've done family counseling, I've done marriage, individual.
They all feel like they're giving up something.
Absolutely. And especially the demographics that I was working in. Like,
So, but what about you?
For me, what
do you feel like you do more of, you've done more of in these different aspects of life? Sacrifice or compromise?
I think in my career, I've done a lot of sacrificing. Okay. I would say. And in my relationships, I've done a lot of compromising. What about you? What would you say?
I would say that most of my life has been built on compromise because I have currently lived more life as a young person than as an adult. And I didn't really have to sacrifice anything until I became an adult. like a real adult, like fiance, kids, family. I never really had to give anything up.
That makes sense because you were the only child.
Yeah, I got what I wanted. I did what I wanted. And yeah, like there was nothing. I don't know. Do you feel like you gave a lot of things up as a kid? Like things that you feel like you sacrificed as a kid?
In the context of the way that I was raised, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have decision making, so the sacrifices were given to me.
Yeah. What, like what?
Like not being raised by my biological mom and dad, like having to repeat the first grade because I fell asleep through the whole first year, like, you know, all of those things.
Like you didn't have a choice but to sacrifice things, even if you didn't know that you wanted them yet. So we're different in the aspect that you feel like you've sacrificed from the first grade through college
Oh, absolutely.
and didn't really start compromising until you were an adult
Mm-hmm.
and until we were in relationship and getting married and all of that, where I feel like I never had to make a sacrifice. Like the biggest sacrifice that I made was like, we can't go to Wendy's today. Like I gotta eat this Kroger pizza is
Like,
what you're telling me.
Majority of my sacrifices, I would say, until I became an older adult, would be my internal flesh sacrifices.
You gotta keep remembering. I went to Columbus City
So
schools.
my desire to be like going to the club, like that had to die down because I knew that was becoming detrimental.
But that's like that was in regard to relationships. Like
Yeah.
those were the sacrifices you made as an adult. I'm just saying like we differed as kids that you had to make a lot of sacrifices that you didn't even really know or why you had to make, but you were making them. Like if you were compared to other kids, maybe like you compared to me, your life is full of sacrifices as a kid compared to my sacrifice was like, all right, I guess I'm not getting the dirt bike again this year because my mom doesn't understand what I mean by dirt bike on my Christmas list. I keep getting a new bicycle. I wanted to be a motorbike.
Yeah.
Like that's I didn't have those like life changing sacrifices that I knew about or didn't know about. It just, I mean, there are things, but
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we are like yin and yang in that aspect that you're compromised. You never had to compromise. Like you never had a say
No.
in your childhood. This is how it is. This is who you're moving in with. This is what you do. This is when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was a lot less. I mean, I say that like you never had a say in your life, but like it was less than mine.
Less than yours, yeah.
I always had a say.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we grew up, we became adults. I feel like more so than other people were like, no, like this is what I want for myself.
Mm-hmm.
This is what matters to me. You better get on board with what matters to me because I haven't been able to make decisions my whole life. Now I'm making some decisions.
Yeah. I mean, but also taking into the consideration that I was also raised where children are seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And though you may have the opportunity to present your thoughts and your feelings, they were also not really validated or taken into the consideration that she's young, you know? So it's different for me.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to how how it even makes sense that we worked out, I guess, because we come from two completely different backgrounds, two completely different, like, I guess not different background, kind of.
Definitely.
Yeah, but like,
you were exposed to things that I was never exposed to.
Yeah, but I still understood. Like, it wasn't like I had no awareness of why you were going through what you were going through, or why you were in the position you were in. Like, it wasn't like I was some kid from, nowheresville that didn't understand what was happening in the world. Like, I got that part of it because I have friends that were going through that.
I think you understood, but you didn't really you weren't able to relate until we started dating.
I couldn't empathize maybe as much as I could sympathize. You know what I'm saying? But even to that is like, now we're adults. Like, our relationship as kids is built upon, well, you talked about in the other episode, it wasn't physical attraction for you, unfortunately.
I forgot to mention that unibrow that you had.
Yeah, I never had a unibrow. I always kept it clean and tight, especially as a kid. But it was more so built upon like a connection than anything like deep. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It was just like, this person cares about me, we're connected, blah,
this
blah,
is
blah.
different.
But now as adults, it's like we both get to make our own decisions, and you are like, no more sacrificing, and I'm like, I don't sacrifice, right? So if you're not going to sacrifice, and I'm not used to sacrificing, then it seems like we should have just automatically started butting heads, and this thing should have fizzled out. But somehow we learned how to compromise. Somehow we figured out, like, oh, this person matters. We got to find ways around these issues of sacrifice.
Yeah. I mean, we were 24 when we got married?
Yeah, I mean, we were young.
That's so young.
And I maybe it's just a testament to
God's favor.
Yeah, just like we're supposed to be together, and we had to learn how to figure it all out. But I mean, we'll keep rolling with that. What do you think is, which one, I guess, for the average couple, the average friend group, the average person out there, do you think is more important?
So I tell all my friends that are either dating or married, you should never feel like you're sacrificing. You should never feel like you're sacrificing. And I say that because it only feels like a sacrifice if it's something that you truly value. Like, that's it. Like,
but like,
you were willing to sacrifice. Like, I was willing to sacrifice the fact that you were not 6'2". Because
why you keep talking about how I'm not 6'2"?
I mean, I was willing to sacrifice that. I was willing because I knew that didn't really have any value.
But don't you need a list? Like,
I think your list should be. I don't think you should have a list per se, because that is very.
Well, like, things that I guess that it's not like a physical list. Like, these are. I agree. You should be willing to compromise on your physical attractions.
I feel like you should have non-negotiable aspects of a person.
Like non-sacrificable.
Non-sacrificable.
That's what I was saying.
Aspects in your.
Negotiable wouldn't be the first word that comes to my mind.
Okay. Yeah. In your.
Sacrificable.
in your.
They're like less to do with. See, I'm not good with words, but less to do with physical appearance, less to do with things that we can change, but more to do with like, I'm not going to sacrifice my faith.
I mean, yeah, not sacrifice my faith, not sacrifice my desires that I have, or the vision that I feel God has for me in my marriage, or as I, grow a family, or whatever that may be, or my career. I mean,
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I would push back where you're saying you should never feel like you're sacrificing.
Those things you should never feel like you're sacrificing.
Right. I guess I was just kind of confused about like, oh, so I'm supposed to compromise my faith if we don't see it the same way, or I'm supposed to compromise. So you're allowed to like say, no, these are things that I won't sacrifice. I'm holding on. Like, it's not that you should always be compromising in a relationship. Like, you have your things that you won't sacrifice,
Non-negotiable,
yeah, non-negotiables, and then non-sacrificables,
non-sacrifice.
and then everything else is
let's have a conversation
let's
about
figure it out.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like that bang that you had.
Come on, bruh.
I mean,
Chill out.
you had that bang for forever, and
for forever.
You
for
had that bang for you had
3 years of our relationship.
No.
That's it.
Alicia can attest to how long you had that bang, and that was a compromise. I mean, and it was a slow thing because I asked you to stop wearing the gel and combing it with the comb. I asked you to, so
I didn't know how to.
there were things that, but that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be something that's so serious. It could just be something that, like you said, can change.
Yeah.
Like that's an exterior thing that doesn't really have value and you don't really care for it, and it can be changed.
But don't your non-negotiables change? Like, isn't that, I guess,
your non-negotiables, if they change, then that means that
they're not really
of value.
Like, but if you don't really know, like, you think about faith. Like, if you don't have a faith, then that's not a non-negotiable for you. But then if you find God and you develop a faith, then that becomes a non-negotiable.
And then you have to reevaluate the relationship.
Not even even if you're not in a relationship. Or
reevaluate the friendship, or reevaluate the whatever it is that may be interfering with that.
Yeah, but they can change. They can grow. Like, things that I would have said, like, as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old,
absolutely.
These are non-negotiables for me, are not non-negotiables for me now.
Yeah.
Like, as a kid, you would have been like, listen, you can either be in this relationship with this girl or never play 2K and Madden again. And I would have been like, bruh, like, she ain't that important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm playing this. Like, this is what I do. This is who I am.
I know.
This is why I have friends.
I've lived that.
And then 10 years later, I have to set up situations where they're like under the table 2K games with people off the books.
Oh my gosh, you're so extra.
But like that's a silly example, but faith is the opposite of that, or like having kids,
or religion, or race. Like, if I couldn't come home and share with you my experiences as being a African American woman in multiple situations where I am the only one, and you not have a conversation with me about that, we would have to have a conversation about that, because that's my experience.
So you're saying, even though these sacrifices matter, these non-sacrifices, things that are not negotiable, things that you won't sacrifice, even though they matter, the more important thing is compromise in any kind of relationship.
What do you think?
I mean, I agree that compromise is more important, because throughout a friendship, throughout a relationship, throughout any situation, it's going to come about more often. Like, people just disagree. So I think compromise is more important, but I guess I agree with you in the realm of like sacrifice. You need to know what you won't sacrifice. But sacrifice happens. It's not that sacrifice. I don't think I don't see it as like sacrifice should never happen, because there are things that I cared a lot about in relationships, in friendships, that I gave up for that to move forward. But compromise is more prevalent in all of those aspects of my life than sacrifice is. But do you think it's both are a necessity? Well, I think I would say that both are a necessity. You have to be willing to sacrifice something sometimes, somehow, and that more often you got to figure out how to come to compromises.
I would agree with that. And I think sacrifices look different for each individual, each relationship, each situation.
So the real, the real, real, the real, you keep it 100, keep it 100, keep it buck. Typically, I think people feel like, I guess, relationships, people have issues, and it's probably the cause of a lot of relationships ending, because someone feels like they're sacrificing more than someone else. So, what do you think about that? What if
I think that's real.
What if that's reality, that somebody is constantly sacrificing more than another person?
I think that's real. I've had personal people, I've had people in my profession, I've had people that I've counseled who has said, I have given this person my all. I have sacrificed myself.
Yeah.
With what in return?
So, who do you think has sacrificed more between you and me?
Between you and me, what, prior to marriage?
No, in our marriage.
We shouldn't be sacrificing anything.
Listen, I don't know if you've got the whole reason I agreed to talk about sacrifices in this episode is to keep saying, I really care about NBA 2K. And
I'm sure your mom is going to buy you that for Easter. She buys you a video game every Easter.
No, it's been many Easters since I haven't gotten a video game from my mom. The last NBA 2K that I bought was 2017.
Okay.
And then in 2018,
this isn't about you.
I'm just saying, I want you to hear that I feel like I sacrificed something that I really, really cared about.
You know what also, I think it's important that maybe you should start exploring your bike in the garage.
Listen, sometimes you need to shut up.
So what would you say have been some of your sacrifices in friendships and compromises that you had, even though you were the only child? I do remember you having a lot of people over at your house, and your summers were completely filled with a house full of boys. And
yeah, I feel like I sacrificed as a kid and as a young adult. I sacrificed a lot of, as a young kid, I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of connections. We didn't live in a neighborhood. I didn't have people that I could just play with. So then I had a lot of alone time. I had a lot of my own time, or time with my mom. And then as I got friends and as my mom was more willing to open the house up, yeah, I sacrificed a lot of that alone time. And it was difficult for me because I was the only child. I went from being the only child with all of this time to now, like, I have a friend over Friday, until Sunday evening every weekend. And it really, that sacrificing that time that I was so used to, it did really help me looking back now when I don't feel like I have time of my own, because like if I didn't have that for middle school, end of middle, eighth, seventh grade, eighth grade through high school, and even more so moving in with a roommate in college, and if I didn't have those friends, if I didn't have that situation that people were just always over, and I didn't feel like I had time to myself on the weekend, and sometimes it was frustrating because it was like, all right, bruh, you need to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm tired of this. But at the same time, it's like you knew deep down, like, bro, they don't want to go home. Like,
Mm-hmm.
ain't nothing at home for them. Um, but that really helped me now. So those sacrifices I didn't even know I was making with my time, with my like alone time and mental health, it comes into play now where as a parent, as a husband, that works full time, that has other things going on, you feel like sometimes it's like I don't have no time to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So now you think back like, oh, I used to spend all this time with my friends, and now not only do I not have time for my friends, I don't have time for myself. But it might have been something that I was being prepared for,
Mm.
because I can't imagine what it would have been like if I was just like only child to myself all my life, introvert,
Yeah.
boom, wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs, life.
Why does your eyes get bigger as you speak
I'll be
on?
out here going crazy. I'll be going crazy.
Yeah, I think that's good insight. Would you say that would you say that your sacrifices when we were dating and as we got and when we became married became more of a challenge? Or would you say that you then started to identify that we need to come to some compromises or this isn't going to work?
Well, I felt like I really did, probably because I was the only child, because of my situation. Even with my friends, oftentimes, I can look back and realize that I was in a power position as a friend that I didn't know then. Like, I didn't take advantage of it, but like I had this house that was open to people on the weekends, during the week. I had a car. I had, I had gas money. My mom bought food. Like, we weren't well off, but, you know, she made sacrifices so that, I could do things, or I could have things that I think looked like I had a lot more than we actually did. But regardless of all that, it was like people were probably used to making more sacrifices to just be with me or be around me or be connected to me because it benefited them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still didn't have to sacrifice a lot for friendships. Like, I didn't have to go over nobody else's house for real because they all wanted to come to my house. I didn't have to do this, right? You know? So it still was hard for me as we grew up as friends, uh, with my friends, with you, to really identify like why do I have to I guess I felt like I shouldn't have to make sacrifices. I still had to really learn like how to compromise, and that this isn't about me giving things up. This isn't about me not being able to do things as much as it is about like just figuring out uh, the right portion or the right amount of time to spend on something, because I felt like I was giving up things that I really liked. I felt like it was always on me to sacrifice something that I liked, or a friend that I had, or a game that I liked, or a sport.
Sport.
Yeah, like I stopped watching
Oh, I thought you meant like
football.
playing a sport.
No, like just watching sports or, like things that I always did,
Mm-hmm.
I had to stop doing, but not because I was being forced to or not because I had to, but it just was the right thing to do. But I didn't look at that. I didn't always look at it as I'm compromising this for the betterment of something else as much as I got to give this up. I got to give all these things up for this relationship to work.
Mm.
So I did feel like I gave up a lot more. And I mean, I might not have communicated that, but I felt like I was giving up football, watching football on Sundays. I was giving up playing video games. I was giving up alone time. I was giving up, you know, um, all those things. And you can start to compare, I guess, like, all right, I'm giving up all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
What are you giving up?
Mm-hmm.
But at the, and then if you do that, it can be detrimental because
Definitely.
you might not be
Because I
giving up
already got like 17 in my mind.
all the things that you gave up.
Mm-hmm.
See, in my mind, like, what was you giving up?
Yeah.
You wasn't giving up nothing. You was getting your way every time because I gave up all the stuff that I needed to give up for you to have your way.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how that it can just, if you don't address it and have dialogues about it, it can just become one of these things of, well, you're giving up and I'm giving up all of these things. Well, why are we together if no one's happy and we're just sacrificing each other just to say we're married and we live in the same house?
And we had that.
We've had those conversations.
And that was tough.
I know. We've had a lot of those conversations actually earlier in our marriage because we weren't in a space where we understood what marriage was. And I think that that's one of the things where you have to be, open and honest with each other. And I think if you're coming from a place of love and love and understanding what marriage is or should be, there should be conversations about someone feeling like they're always like they're being sacrificed consistently.
Yeah. And I think that can be the crux of a relationship, any kind of relationship, is that oftentimes the person that is in the power position can make someone else feel like they're compromising. Like
Compromise?
Yeah.
Feel like they're compromising?
What I'm saying is it can be easy when you're talking about all of that for somebody in the power position. Is oftentimes easier for them to make somebody that is a subordinate to them, or like that, if somebody doesn't feel like they're bringing as much to the table, can they be convinced that they're compromising for the relationship, while in all actuality this person that's in these power positions never has to make a sacrifice or a compromise. It's just always the other person sacrificing, really, but they think they're like compromising. But they've really changed their values and their morals and their opinions.
Definitely. I do think that that's one of the things where I think that's one of the things where people can quickly find out that this isn't what I thought it was. Like for instance, I had a coworker who then became a friend, got married, and then 7 months later they got a disillusion. Like we went to their marriage, we went to their wedding, and they were just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not about to sacrifice all of these things and all the things that I want for him. I'm not doing it. But those should have been questions that you should have had prior to you going down the altar, or even you guys deciding to further the relationship. And it should be the same for, honestly, for any aspect of your life. Like job interviews. I've had, like, I can have a career on how many job interviews I've been to, because I just don't, there's things that I won't sacrifice. And if I feel like it's too invasive to my personal life, I'm going to look for a new job. So I think that's one of the things where you knowing what you're willing to compromise and what you're willing to sacrifice benefits you, because you know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that didn't come overnight. That came through consistent inventory of myself and just learning from my prior life lessons. Like, marriage isn't easy. Working full time with kids isn't easy. Family, all of those things aren't easy. But where I work right now, it's one of those things where it has also opened my eyes to the understanding that money really doesn't have that much value when you're laying in a hospital bed and no one wants to come visit you. Mm-hmm. Or you don't have, we can't find your legal next of kin. Like, here you are, and I have to try to figure out who wants to be your healthcare power of attorney. That's deep. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to all your friends and family and loved ones who you feel like may be in a position where they don't know if they're sacrificing or compromising things, important aspects of their life? They have a feeling, but they don't really know.
They got to figure it out. But I don't think you can figure it out without being in relationships with other people. Like, the biggest thing is, like, people have these lists of things that they'll never compromise on, or things that they'll never sacrifice, or there's all these lists that people make in their mind before entering into some sort of relationship. And it just, I think it can prevent people, period, from entering into relationships, mm-hmm. or friendships or whatever, because your list is too long. Immediately you're Xing people out. They don't make the cut immediately because one of your non-negotiables is X, Y, and Z. Like, one of your non-negotiables is 6'2" or above. Mm-hmm. And it completely prevents things from developing and things from growing. I think that's the biggest thing I learned, and that I think people should know, is that those sacrifices and compromises, though they're important for you to know what you won't sacrifice, what you won't compromise on, things that you will, it's ever changing. Mm-hmm. And you don't really know. Because
you're ever changing.
Yeah, and you don't really know until you're prepared to enter into some sort of relationship with someone else. And that's when you really, really get to find out, oh, that didn't mean as much to me as I thought it did. Mm-hmm. Because this person means more to me. Definitely. Or this person keeps trying to change this one thing about me, and I'm not willing for that to change. That means a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And those can be, if that is the case, then those should be reasons why relationships or friendships end. But sometimes I think, like, people can keep coming up to those things all the time.
I can change them.
I can change them. And then the other person is like, no, that's never going to change. And that's one topic. And then we get on to going out to eat. And then it's about music that we listen to at home. And then it's about things that we spend our money on. And there's always one person on one side and another person on another side. Mm-hmm. And neither one of them ever want to make a compromise, but then they stay in a relationship forever.
Yeah.
And waste, like, just give it up. Yeah. Like, that's so it's a like catch-22. I think you really need to get into relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be in relation with people for you to really find out what matters to you, for you to really find out what you're okay sacrificing, for you to really find out how to make compromises with other people. But then at the same time, you need to be willing to exit those relationships if
they're not of value.
They're not of value. They don't end up lining up with who you are, what you believe, what you won't settle for, what you won't compromise, what you won't sacrifice. So that's just really how I see it. And I've unfortunately had to let relationships go because of that, and challenge other relationships and friendships, and they flourished. And I think ours is an example of that. Is, there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of, we found out real early on how different we were after we were adults. Like, we thought we had everything in common until we moved in together, and really had to figure that out. But had we moved in together first before we really loved each other,
we wouldn't
be together.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Had we done some of those things before we really, really loved each other, because what really happened, I think, is you became what I won't sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? You became the thing that I won't sacrifice, which makes everything else compromisable.
Oh, I almost cried. So I challenge everybody who is listening to this episode to sit down and take time and do an internal inventory of yourself and identify what in your life or in your situation where you feel like you're not being completely honest, and create an action plan to be honest in that area.
Have you done that with clients before?
Yes.
So is everyone listening to this episode a client of yours?
No. I mean, I did that for myself on Friday about the situation that the world is in right now. Like, I listed all of my uncertainties and I identified what I can control. And I can't control anything.
That's why you've been asking me all weekend what can you control?
Yeah. The only thing I can control is my mindset in this situation. And I refuse to allow this situation to take my mind. I just do.
Yeah, my takeaway is that it's fluid. That sacrifices that I make today aren't sacrifices that I would have made 7 years ago, and that I had to learn how to compromise. Compromise doesn't.
It's a learned behavior.
Yeah, I think sacrifice is black and white. It's this or that, and compromise is. There's so much that goes into it that you don't even know until you're in it. And you got to figure it out consistently how to compromise and what you can do to please the other person and what you need in return.
Definitely. That's good. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
Mix it up.
Thank you for listening to Mix It Up with Kevin and Tenisha. Make sure you listen, like, and subscribe. Follow us on IG at Kevin and Tenisha. We'll stay tuned for more, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for mixing up with my mom and dad.